On. Hey everybody, good morning. Another edition of In the Empire's Clubhouse. He's Dale Scott waving at you. He's Jimmy Joyce. And today we have a pioneer of sorts, Emma Tiedemann. She is one of the four female broadcasters in minor league baseball who is now the voice for several years now of the Portland Sea Dogs, the AA franchise of the only team that matters to me, the Boston Red Sox. So with that, we're going to find out all kinds of stuff and about her grandfather, who was a sports broadcaster in the Dallas area. Emma, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah,
Oh,
welcome, Emma. Good to see you.
Hey, Emma.
yeah, we're glad to have you, Emma. Your grandfather. How much info did you get from Bill Mercer?
I mean, everything. He got me started broadcasting when I was 15. So, it all starts with him. And then after that, I got a critique after every game. When I was in Alaska, he would stay up late on the East Coast and listen to every game, send me critiques. And we still talk just about every day after a broadcast to this day. So, yeah, basically everything I got, I learned from him.
I read his a little on your bio. He got a lot of his chops from Red Barber.
Yeah, he did. And I read the broadcasters by Red Barber every year before opening day, just because when he was teaching at the University of North Texas, especially that last chapter of that book, he would use it as his quote unquote textbook of how to prepare and how to really get the best broadcast you could every night. So yeah, a lot of it is from Red Barber. That's why I kind of consider myself an old school broadcaster because there's nothing better than baseball on the radio.
My nephew is graduating in December from Sacramento State in broadcast communications. He's doing the Sac State home football games on their radio station, and he interned this year for the Reno Aces. And he's got a gig after school. He's gonna be in Palm Springs with the Palm Springs Chill or Power, whatever they're
The
called. They're a
power.
collegiate
Yep.
winter league. So he's starting there, and he's taken a lot. I told him, I said, Evan, I want you to go on YouTube, listen to Vince Scully, listen to Red Barber, listen to Ernie Harwell, pick from them, see how they do it.
Mhm.
They're the best of the best. And he's learning. He's taken. He still gets a little excited, but he's a kid. He's 21. He's not a
So
grizzled
Emma,
veteran like you.
Emma, give us a background. Tell us about yourself. How did you get to where you're at now? And fill in all the blanks there.
Well, it's been a long road so far. Like I said, I got started when I was 15. I originally grew up wanting to be a veterinarian. I loved animals. But at the same time, I grew up playing every sport under the sun. I grew up in Dallas, Texas, so I was playing football at recess with the boys and doing all of those. I was just a really active kid. And then when high school started, I realized that I was really not great at math or science, which are two key subjects if you want to be a vet. So I was struggling with those, and I happened to go to a women's basketball game with my grandfather, and he was broadcasting with a student. I was just going to go, keep score, just sit next to him, and his student couldn't make it. So he looked to me and said, I have an extra headset. You've been playing basketball for forever. Why don't you throw on the headset and we'll see how you sound? And, that was it for me. I was hooked. I absolutely love play by play because it was a lot like playing sports. You think on your feet, you analyze, you adjust. It was fantastic. And so a little Division III school in Richardson, Texas, saw a high school kid who would call games for free. So I went through high school calling women and men's basketball, volleyball, softball, baseball, soccer, all of those sports. And then I went to the University of Missouri, continued calling. First, it was Big 12, and then they went to the SEC, obviously. So then it was SEC sports through Mizzou. And around my junior year, I decided that I really kind of want to work for a network, broadcast year round, broadcast a whole bunch of sports. But baseball was my weakest sport play by play wise. So I started Googling, as we all do, summer collegiate teams in the country, and got a master list of every GM's email of every team in the country at that point. And I sent out an email to every GM. I had two responses. One was in Oregon and one was in Alaska. And I got the job up in Alaska and spent a season with the Matsu Miners in Palmer. And then that was in 2014. Then in 2015 and 16, I did end up going to Medford, Oregon with the Medford Rogues, and then got my first professional job with the St. Paul Saints in 2017. And then went to the Lexington Legends, the Royals affiliate at the time, in 18 and 19, and then got the job with Portland in 2020. And I've been here ever since.
Wow.
Told you it was long.
There's nothing wrong with
Well,
that.
I'd like to point out one thing that being from Dallas and then New England now, but you do say Oregon correctly. Very nice.
Yes, you
We
do.
like that.
Yes. And I correct people up here because they get it wrong all the time. Oof.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. But now, so as far as radio, that's the only stuff you did was play by play. I mean, you never worked at a radio station and did anything except sports and that type of stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, in the off season in Medford, actually, I worked at the radio station there on their ESPN affiliate, and I called high school football actually for South Medford. And then here in Portland in the off season, I work at the radio station that actually carries the Sea Dogs games, but I'm in studio producing and hosting for the Maine Celtics, which is the G League affiliate of the Boston Celtics. So yeah, I've never been full time in a radio station, but I've kind of filled the gaps a little bit, especially in the off season when don't have a ton to do.
Right, right. When I was in high
100.
school, I was on the high school station at Sheldon. They might have played
Oh,
Medford when you were
Sheldon,
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely did.
And I called one. I did one sport play by play of a basketball game, and it was fun. I mean, I was horrible because it was the first one I ever did, and but I did radio as a disc jockey and that kind of stuff. And a lot of people say, well, I'm surprised you didn't do sports. I really never. That's what I really wasn't looking to do that. I was looking when I was in radio for. It was more on the spin the tunes and talk to the people. And that kind of stuff. But you mentioned that baseball was your least experience at, or you said you didn't do as well at, or whatever of all the sports. Tell us about the differences. Is baseball a little bit tougher because you have in between pitches, you got to kind of fill stuff, or I mean, explain to us of the sports you have done. Kind of how different they are and how similar they are when you're doing sport, play by play.
Yeah, I think you could kind of loop basketball, volleyball, sometimes soccer, kind of, and football into kind of one category. Baseball is in a category of its own. But, with basketball, for example, I call University of New Hampshire basketball on the radio in the off season. And it's on the radio. I don't have a partner, mostly because it's constant action. You're constantly doing the play by play. On TV, you can take a break, you can analyze a little bit. But when there's a lull in the action, but with basketball, I mean, if you're driving around listening on the radio, you need to know where the inbounds is. Is it on the near side, the far side, which baseline? Is it to my right, to my left? All those little details. And so that's really, really play by play heavy. And there's a lot more action. Shot goes up is either a great, offensive rebound, defensive, quick transition, all of those high energy moments. Baseball, there is more time between the pitches. Obviously, it's changed now with the pitch clock, and among other rule changes. But the pitch clock has sped up the game a little bit, but there is still significant time to fill those voids. And I think when I first started calling baseball by myself, that was in Medford. You have to really get comfortable with silence, and there's never true silence because you have the crowd, and that's part of the story as well. And I think Ben Scully did a fantastic job of utilizing that. So you have to be comfortable with the pauses. You have to have a great kind of tempo, but then at the same time, when those moments do arise, when it's a double in the gap and it scores in a run, and it's a 1-0 game, your energy has to be there and match the moment. But that energy is not going to be the same energy that you're going to use with a routine ground ball to short for the first out in the fourth inning and a 10-1 game. That clearly is already over before we've even gone to, past the fifth inning. So there's a lot of those little nuances that baseball provides. And again, that's what hooked me in Alaska, was how different it is. And then on top of it, you're calling a game every night. So, and a lot of the parents and fans are listening just about every night. So they don't want to hear the same story over and over and over again. You have to push yourself to talk to the players, research more, bring up a random stat that you can find, anything like that to vary that, because football once a week, you work all week to spice it up, but you have 6 days. Baseball, you have roughly, I don't know, 17 hours between broadcasts, which I think is really fun of you're just constantly having to push yourself to be better literally every single day.
And
Yeah.
that's the funny thing about baseball too, is we never had Dale and I never had the benefit of listening to games or seeing games on TV and stuff like that for, the better part of 40 years. And nowadays I'm sitting here listening or I'm watching or whatever. And I'm glad to hear you say that about the transitioning of different sports and how you break it down. And baseball is a lot of silent moments, but you know what? Nowadays it seems like they get paid by the word.
Oh God, yes.
Sometimes. I'm just saying I'm 112 years old, so um and we didn't have the benefit of sitting and watching games and listening to games, but I'm glad to hear you say that to be comfortable with silence.
Mhm.
Because you know what, that's even more effective than what you're saying sometimes. And I'm glad to hear you say that. And I hope you keep that, because in my humble professional experience, I think that's a benefit actually. And like you came up with the name Vin Scully. Vin Scully was the best. Ernie
Oh,
Harwell was the best. Nowadays, you have 12 people in the booth and everybody's fighting for something to say.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I think that is a hard case to watch. So when you do make the huge move to the upstairs and you're in the Yankee booth or whatever, I hope you remember that, because that is really beneficial. And I'm glad to hear you say that, because that sounds to me like a lot of experience.
well, one thing about Emma mentioned Vin Scully. If you listen to the radio on YouTube of Sandy Koufax's perfect game, 2-2 to Harvey Keene, one strike away, blah blah blah, and there's silence. Vin let the crowd for a minute. He let the crowd screaming and yelling. Same thing with Kirk Gibson's home run. He let the crowd tell the moment, and to me, that speaks volumes. That's letting the fans know what's going on, you know. And
You know,
I grew up in Southern California, and Vin was God to us. I mean, Vin could, do celebrity bowling, and it would be interesting, because Vinny had that way.
one thing that Vin did I thought was just brilliant, and it seems like I read a article after the fact. Somebody asked him about it, and he said it just came to mind at the time. I don't know, but I don't remember the pitcher. It was a Dodger pitcher, no hitter. Might have even been a perfect game. I don't remember, but it's certainly a no hitter. And two outs in the ninth, and very calm and stuff. Uh, that third out, Vin said, and at 9:37 p.m. on August 5th, blah blah blah, John Smith just finished off a no hitter or something to that, but he
Mhm.
time stamped it,
Yeah, that was the perfect game.
and
That's
I
what he
and I
did.
thought that is so cool that you time stamp it in the moment. You let it, like Jimmy said, the crowd, you hear the crowd, and he lets that play out also. But I just thought it was brilliant how he did that. Just a little something I never had thought of. One thing I was going to ask you, you had mentioned different sports. Have you ever done hockey?
Once.
That's got to be organized chaos.
Yeah, and I did not grow up, watching hockey or anything. All Most of my hockey knowledge came from my husband, who was a diehard New York Rangers fan. I see the Bruins jersey, but he's a so
Tell him I
I
have a
know.
Rangers jersey too, so it's all good.
Okay, good. Yeah, so I, know everything about me because Zibanejad and Shesterkin and all those guys, and he was trying to, I was doing a lot of research myself, and he was explaining a lot, and the opportunity came up here in Portland, and I said, oh, yeah, why not? And I memorized the players pretty well, but it's just a totally different sport. And when I accidentally said slap shit, instead of slap shot, I was like, I think I'm done. I think I'm
Yeah.
done. So I haven't called a game since. I just took myself out of the equation.
Well,
That's a good
I
blooper, though.
marvel
There's
at
nothing wrong with that. That's
hockey
a
guys.
good
Yeah,
blooper. I like that.
yeah. I mean, I marvel at some. I mean, Gary Thorne was,
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh, he was brilliant.
was it Pierre or something? He was with NBC most
Pierre
recent.
LaRouche, was it Pierre LaRouche? No, Pierre. Yeah, I know. Oh God,
He was their main guy until about 2 years ago or last year he retired. But anyway, just that's to me. I haven't done any of them, but that seems very very tough. But Emma, again, radio and TV are different, right? I mean, as far as
Mhm.
your job behind the microphone, and radio, you have to paint a picture and storytell because, like you said, where's he inbounding the ball? What direction are they going? What are they underneath the hoop? Are they whatever to help the listener actually see the game through your eyes and through what you're saying and correct me if I'm wrong, television is more, you've got the pictures. You need to either back up what you're seeing or analyzing what just happened as they show something. Uh, have you done a lot of television versus radio and the difference?
Yeah, the last couple of years I've definitely done more TV. And it is very different. And every time I do TV, including the Red Sox game in August on Nesson, I had to catch myself, doing a routine ground ball to short. I was like, they can see there's a ground ball to short, or it's a ground ball to Devers. I can just say Devers to Casas, inning comes to an end. We head to the bottom of the third, something like that. So
Right.
you're right. And with, looking out over the stadium right now, when I call games on the radio, I look at the field. But then, part of the story also, especially with baseball games and minor league baseball in particular, is what's going on outside of the field too. So what is our mascot up to? What are the fans doing? It's those little kind of moments that bring you in a little bit even more in depth into whatever stadium you're in. So sometimes you'll hear me come back to break and I'll talk about whatever skit our mascot did. Slugger does a unique skit every single game here at Hadlock Field. Only mascot that does it. And some of them are really, really funny. And so we'll talk about it whenever we come back from break and kind of painting the complete picture outside of the foul lines as well. But TV, yeah, because the people see, they can see the fly ball. But again, it's kind of meeting those bigger moments too of the deep drives to right field and matching that energy. But on TV too, I try and remember because, we mentioned my grandfather, he's 98. He turns 99 in February.
Wow.
He can't always see the score bug. So, you'll hear me say it's a 2-2 pitch, or I'll probably say the score a little bit more often because I realize, the audience still can't see everything that's on the screen, or they have the TV on the background and they should know whenever Devers or Casas or Cedon Rafaela makes a crazy catch is by the energy of your voice. So they turn around and they stop folding the laundry and they think, oh, what'd they do now? That kind of thing to kind of hook them back onto TV. That's kind of how I've started to approach it a little bit.
You are one lucky lady. I saw, that you did the Red Sox game. Did you get any help from Joe Castiglione?
No, he was totally on the radio side. It was all really with Nesson. They had approached us and kind of brought us in a couple of weeks before to see everything. So Dave O'Brien showed us around the booth. Got to meet, Lou Merlone and Kevin Youkilis, obviously. So it was all really on the TV side. I actually met Joe Castiglione in 2021. He actually put me on my first major league broadcast. I was just going as a fan, and the organist Josh Canner was showing me around the press box at Fenway, and just randomly ran into Joe, and he said, "Well, why don't you come back in the third inning? You can talk Sea Dogs." And so I got to talk for a whole inning with Joe Castiglione and Sean McDonough about the Sea Dogs and everything. And I was freaking out because I had never done anything on a major league broadcast. But yeah, actually, Joe put me on for the first time. It was awesome.
Well,
Joe is one of my favorite people. Out of all the broadcasters and everybody that we have met in our job, he was always gracious. He was always good, and he was always fair. And
Mhm.
I remember that about him. And his award, his going to the Hall of Fame was well deserved.
However,
Totally agree.
Sean McDonough hated me. I swear in the 90s when Sean was, the voice of the Red Sox and doing Nesson. I mean, I've got a really good friend that lives a few in Boston, but I remember I had the Red Sox elsewhere on the West Coast or something. And after he called me one day. What did you do to Sean McDonough? Yeah, I mean, what is the deal? Because it seemed like if a questionable pitch, questionable play, or even not that questionable, but it went against the Red Sox, old Sean was all over him. But that's for another podcast, Emma. I don't want to get into that. I I do, which brings to this question though, as you're doing the Sea Dogs or whatever, have you had have you ever interviewed the umpires or like for a pregame thing or something different? You're always looking for material, because you're you're
Mhm.
you're you're broadcasting every day. Have you had much uh, you know uh, back and forth with umpires and when things aren't going real well on the field, maybe how are you? Let me preface this by saying we had some guys, Ernie Harwell, I remember was one of the best, and Vin was very good at it too. When things weren't looking good on our side, the umpire side down on the field, they had a way of saying it without just blasting the umpire like he's an idiot. Where
Mhm.
again, Jimmy was kind of touched on nowadays. Everybody, and of course, you see the social media and all this other stuff, but nowadays instead of well, that's an interesting call. Maybe from his angle, it looked that way or whatever. Or saying, "Well, that's terrible. What's he looking at?" Well, I mean, there's a couple different ways you can say something like that, right?
Mhm.
Ken Harrelson, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Exactly. Joe
Oop,
Buck.
oop.
Stretch.
Yeah, I think if I ever disagree with something on the field, I never have. I think once this season, it got to a point where I did not understand the strike zone. And if I never say blast anybody, because my thing is it's a totally different angle than what I have in the booth. Um, and also we're all learning at this level. Obviously, the umpires are trying to move up the same way that the players are and
Right.
everything like that. So, I will give credit to umpires who in April maybe some calls I don't agree with, but if we see that crew again in July and they've gotten a lot better, I will say it and I will give them credit because they're getting better in their jobs and everything. But yeah, the one time I did, say something about the strike zone, I will back it up and I will say, look, against, so and so lefties in the lineup, this, pitch has been called, the lower outside part of the plate,
Fenway.
but but
Fenway.
then it's not being reciprocated for right hand. I'll break it down instead of
Right.
just blasting. But no, I never do, and I always tell my assistant, we don't ever blast the
Over there.
umpires because
Over
their
there.
angle is very different from ours. They're doing the best that they can do. We're doing the best up here in the booth. Um, and also their families listen to, and they don't want to hear that. So yeah, and I think the one umpire that I've talked to over the years and I kind of kept in touch with is Jen Powell. She and I were actually in the South Atlantic League together. I guess that was in 2018 or 19. And then she obviously got promoted to AA and got was assigned to Portland, and so we reconnected then. And so I've seen her kind of move up, and it's really cool that she's just a step away from being a big league umpire. But yeah, I think the umpires live a very interesting life, and I definitely try and talk about the fact that they live out of a minivan and travel, after every series and go to a new city and spend, the entire season with two other people. I give the umpires a lot of kudos for that because I would go nuts.
See, one of the things is what we're talking about right now is that the umpires do have family, friends, and acquaintances that listen to these games that they're working, and it does get back to them. It does get
Mhm.
back to them. As a matter of fact, even in the major leagues, like we were talking about earlier, I'm not even going to name the ballparks, and I'm not going to name the person that did it, but we had a person come to or actually a family member come to one of my guy in my crew and said, "You should have heard what they talked about you last night. This is TV."
Oh, wow.
I said, "Really?" And they said, "Yeah." So we brought up the broadcast and, in our locker room, and it was horrible what this one person said about one of my partners. So I actually called the general manager from the team to come down and talk to us about it. I mean, there's one thing about criticizing, and there's
Mhm.
another thing about name calling. It's two different things. And I consider it bullying on a broadcast if you're using um, not so nice vernacular about an umpire and calling them names. There's just no excuse for it, in my humble opinion. Well, the general manager was very gracious and stuff like that. And it really never happened again, as far as I know. And, that there's like Dale just said, Vin Scully, Ernie Harwell, there were people in the game that knew how to criticize an umpire to a certain degree without criticizing an umpire. And it's a fine art. It's a very
without getting
fine
personal
art.
or any of that stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, you can
Exactly.
also, sometimes the managers or the players will be doing the criticizing everything for you, and you tell them that
Right.
they're upset. And then, the point is across, and that you're still painting the picture of your manager is pretty irate, obviously yelling some stuff from the dugout. You don't have to say it on the air that you disagree. The manager's doing it for you. So
That's
I
right.
think that kind of gets the point across too, that maybe there's some disagreements, and you as the broadcaster can still stay neutral too.
Yep,
You know,
absolutely.
I've had the opportunity the last couple of years to be one of three guys that work rules analysts for MLB Network, and we do it we split up 3 games a week, Apple TV, Friday night games, and that kind of stuff. Anyway, when they come to us, it's because something is not going right usually out there on the field, right? Not always a missed call, but obviously there's rule situations or maybe just clarifications of things, but. Um, it's like Jimmy said, you can criticize. I don't expect an announcer when it's obvious an umpire has missed a play to say that he didn't miss the play. I mean that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is there's a way you can do that, and or you can just go to the lowest denominator and just say the guy's an idiot, and what's he looking at. I'll never forget. Joe Morgan used to do the Sunday night baseball on ESPN. I had a game in Anaheim. I was at third base. It was uh, runners at first and second, less than 2 outs, and there was a the runners were running on the pitch, and the ball was hit right down the third base line. So I had a fair foul situation to call first before any play. The fielder fielded it. I had it. I had the ball fair, and then he immediately went to get the runner that was running on the pitch and then throw to first, try to get a double play. I called the runner safe. I had him as safe at third. I missed it. Okay. At the time I didn't realize it, but I missed it. But when I watched it on video afterwards, I'll never forget Joe Morgan, who I had never met it. I met him after the fact a few weeks later in a different game, but I'd never met whatever. But he said, looks like the Dale Scott missed that play, but let's look at what he had to do. He had to stay, and he talked like an umpire. I mean, he said he had to stay on the line to make sure this ball was fair or foul, and then try to get any type of an angle on this play at third. And I think that's maybe why he missed that, because if it hadn't been a fair foul, he would. I mean, he explained it like an instructor would, umpire instructor would explain. I thought, my goodness, that yes, I missed it, and I wouldn't expect him to say that I got it right, but he explained kind of to give the viewer, and this is what I would try to do when I was doing my analyst stuff with MLB Network. Try to give the viewer what the umpire's looking at, what the umpire, here's maybe why he missed this because of this and this, not just to go to, like I said, back to the lowest denominator, just say, well, he missed it. I don't know what he's looking at. It's stupid or whatever. I mean, it just
I like that.
and I love that because there are situations out there. They're not excuses. It's just reality. There are situations that happen that you may not have the angle the 100% angle that you would like to have because of this, or this, and you have to adjust. And that's umpiring. So it's refreshing when at least an announcer or somebody's trying to take a stab at the fact that maybe there's a reason for this, and that it's not just because he's blind, right, or some stupid common denominator or that kind of thing. So that's kudos to you. I like that. I'm going to give you.
Well, it's funny you mentioned like the different angles and stuff. In low A and high A, you have only a 2 umpire crew. And in double A, we have 3 umpires. And it's the funniest thing when you have a guy at the plate and a runner at first, the umpires obviously have to kind of rotate. So if there's a check swing, the third base umpire is behind the mound. He can't really even see that angle too well to even, sometimes, in my opinion, to really see a good angle of a check swing, and they appeal down to third. And then it's funny when everyone points to third base and then they have to realize, oh, he's behind the plate or behind the mound.
Right.
It's all about the angles. And when you have a limited amount on a crew, like 2 or 3 umpires, that's very different than a 4 crew umpire, and everything like that. So again, the angles and numbers, that's what I always try and keep in mind.
Yeah. And that's what's important. Angle, we always say angle and distance, and angle is way more important than distance, because if you have a bad angle, you could be real close to a play. You're not going to see it. That's your umpiring 101 for
There you
today.
go.
Okay.
Exactly. The next course will be in the next podcast.
We have to have
Emma,
Bach
are
and
you
Bob
guys,
on for that, though.
Emma, are the Sea Dogs still in Old Orchard, Maine?
They are not. The Sea Dogs have always been in Portland. You're thinking
Okay.
about the Old Orchard, oh man, Navigators, I want to say, down south about 30 miles. The ballpark is still there though.
I was
I
just
used to
there.
work there. I
It's
actually,
seen better days. You know,
Yes.
Well, haven't we all, Bob?
I put my time in there, so I can
Nice.
remember it was the Phillies organization when I was there.
Mhm.
Like I said, 112 years ago. But and Bill, I can remember the manager. Bill Dancy was the manager, and he was a great guy. He was one of the guys that really was not a raving maniac at times if he had a disagreement with you or whatever. But the thing I remember is Old Orchard, Maine was such a beautiful little community. It was
Mhm.
a little beach town, like here in Oregon. We
yeah.
have a lot of these beach towns on the coast and stuff like that. And that was, for me, it was really kind of cool because it reminded me of home a little bit. But my first time in Old Orchard, Maine was in April.
Oh.
We had a snowstorm. And
Yep.
they would put us in a town for, like for 2 series. So you were there for a week or whatever. And the first 3 days that I spent in Old Orchard, Maine were actually in the Holiday Inn bar. So we
Well,
went for 3 days and we had snow butt deep. I mean, it was a snowstorm. It wasn't just
Yeah.
a dusting. It was so that's
That happened. That
one of my
happened in
vivid
April.
memories. Yes,
Yeah.
it was unbelievable.
Well, there
Yeah,
they
that
just call
happened
it a
this year.
Tuesday, right? I mean, just
Right. Yeah.
just
It's
like,
just another day.
Yeah.
well, then there's the black flies you got to worry about in the summertime. You know,
Mhm. Yep.
those are
Yeah,
a pain. Those are a
Well,
pest.
at least you can see the mosquitoes coming at you. So,
that's true. Yeah, I'll never forget in Alaska, the mosquitoes actually
oh
bit through my
man,
pants.
Oh,
The
gee.
worst I've ever experienced. I couldn't believe it. I was like, did I wear shorts today and not know it? Like it was awful. They
so
just
I've
bit right
always
through my
heard that the
pants.
mosquitoes in Alaska had those little red lights on them, so they could, like they could track them as aircraft. And
Yeah.
so Emma, I'm assuming your goal is to get a major league job at some point. I mean, how does that process work? Are you constantly sending out or looking for or checking to see openings maybe in AAA or somewhere else to try to build the resume? I mean, how does that all work?
Yeah, it's definitely trying to move up the ladder, much like everybody else. Though with the Sea Dogs and being so close to Boston and stuff, I don't think I really see myself really going for AAA jobs. I've got a husband and a baby at home, so don't really want to move unless totally necessary. But yeah, after every season, putting together the resume and the tape, talking with people, seeing what might be open, seeing what broadcasters are leaving, and just yeah, reaching out to people, talking to people, seeing what opportunities might come up, and yeah, seeing what's posted on Teamwork Online, and just kind of keeping your ear to the ground, really.
And I would think that uh, you know obviously a lot of other broadcasters at AA, AAA have the same goals and stuff. Are you in communication with I mean, do you know very many other AA, AAA broadcasters? Have you met them you probably cross paths obviously when you're working within your league, but
Mhm.
does that is every like in the minor leagues with baseball and now Jimmy and I go back to the Reagan administration and beyond, but even though all the minor league umpires are trying to get to the big leagues, you had a camaraderie. You had you were happy, with your buddy who you went to umpire school got promoted or something because even though that's a job that you didn't get, but there was a lot of wishing guys well for the most part, but everybody's got the same goal. And I just wondered if there was a little bit because it's such a small fraternity.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. I actually was talking to one of my best friends in the industry about this literally last night, about how, if we were going for the same job, because, he's also in AA, and he called some games for his big league club this year too. So we're kind of on that same trajectory, and how, we are talking about the same openings and stuff at the big league level or AAA. But yeah, it's the same way. And we discussed it last night. It's so funny about how, yes, instinctually you would be pissed that you didn't get a job, but you would be so happy that your best friend, who has also worked their ass off for that job, got it. It would be, 1 and 1A of feeling. You'd be, all right, well, I'm disappointed, but I'm so freaking happy that my friend got it. It would kind of outweigh being upset about not getting a job. You know, it we a lot of my friends actually date back to like the 2014 or 15 winter meetings, when we were all job seekers and going on interviews, and then coming together at the bar and talking about how bad our interviews were and we weren't going to ever work in baseball and all that kind of stuff. So we've all had those kind of trials and tribulations so far, and that network has just only grown larger and larger throughout my years in baseball, and it's cool to see other minor league broadcasters get major league opportunities. I think that's at the end of the day is really, in my mind, what matters. Minor league baseball is an absolute grind, especially for the broadcasters and the umpires and the players who do this every single day, 138 games a year. So when you see somebody in that small group get their chance and get that call up, it's really special. And you kind of suppress your own feelings because your feelings don't matter. You just want to be happy for somebody who's achieving their dreams in that moment.
We did Paul Odin earlier in one of our broadcasts a few times back, and I vividly remember, and we talked about this with Paul. Paul started out the same way. The first time I met Paul was in AAA, and Paul was, doing the same thing, exactly what you're talking about. And now he's sitting in the broadcast, or not the broadcast booth, but he's the voice of the New York Yankees PA. So, keep that dream up, because that is, you never know where that next chair is going to be at. So I can imagine, and it parallels the career of an umpire too, to a certain degree. Is I'm not going to say that we were ecstatic that one of our partners got to go to the big leagues, because you thought you should have been there too and stuff like that. But we are happy for people when they do move up and stuff like that. It's a benefit of the job too. So.
And I would suppose, just like anything else, a lot of it is relationships, people that you met, throughout your career. All of a sudden, that person is working with somebody here and say, "Hey, by the way, we have this. I thought of you first, or that kind of thing." I mean, you don't want to burn bridges, certainly, when things are going on.
Yeah, not till you get there.
Not right. You can burn all of it. Just pyro.
You burn it all down.
Absolutely. Here's a little fuel to the fire, a little gas on the flame.
There you go. And quick question: have you had any issues with being a female in a male sport? Has that been a problem? That 20, 30, 40 years ago when that first popped up, there was the first female. I want to say I want to say Phyllis Jordan. It seemed like it was somebody at CBS with football was one of the first female, and it was a big deal. Oh my God, you can't come in the locker room, you can't talk to us, whatever. I know times have changed a lot. Have you had any issues with that?
Honestly, the only issues I had were with those interviews and winter meetings. It was the people who were hiring for these positions. I have had no issues with the players, no issues with our managers or our coaching staff, or with the organizations like the Red Sox or the Royals, or with the Saints. They were indie ball at the time. Zero issues with them. It was literally just the people who were hiring. So I was kind of baffled when I was in these job interviews, and for example, we had one, and I was interviewing for a job to be an assistant. This was not to be the voice of a team. It was to be the broadcaster's assistant. So I would call some games, the middle innings typically, and just kind of figure out, how everything works in the front office and stuff. It would have been like my first job in minor league baseball. And we sit down, and he opens up his computer, and he's like, I'm really sorry, but the owner of the team found out that I was going to be interviewing a woman for this position, and he doesn't want a female voice on the broadcast. So I can't interview you, but I can critique your tape that you sent in, and critique my tape. And I don't even remember what he said about my tape, because I was just so shocked by that I just, and then, like I said, went to the bar with my friend and I decompressed and was like, what just happened? So it was those, and that wasn't the only one that had just weird things about having a female voice. I had a lot of weird interviews that year.
So somebody
But
actually said that out loud.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah. And
And
he's
this
still broadcasting.
2024, right?
I mean, this would have been in like 2016, so it was a while ago.
It's still in 2000s then, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah, like women still had the right to vote and all that kind of stuff.
There
Like,
you go,
come
yeah.
on. Yeah, no, this person is still broadcasting too. So yeah. So like I said, it was just all with the people hiring. And so once I was able to work for the Saints, especially, and show that I could work in professional baseball, that led me straight into the Legends. And they obviously didn't care about the female thing. And the other side of it too is the person interviewing for these jobs. Like I obviously want to make sure that it's a good fit both sides. So if my gender was ever really brought up in job interviews, I didn't like that. I didn't want to have any interview questions about being a female. I just wanted to have interview questions about being a broadcaster. So I was even offered a job, and they said that they basically wanted to hire me to have the media and PR attention. And it would have been a better job than where I was at. And I turned them down because I just didn't want that. I just wanted to be a broadcaster. So, Lexington, same thing, never brought up the gender thing. And then when Portland became open, the Sea Dogs have really arguably the best reputation in minor league baseball. I knew I had to apply. And same thing, they never brought up the female thing or had any issues with it. And it's been a perfect fit. So yeah, like I said, no issues with players or staff or anything. It's just been the people who have been hiring. It's been bizarre.
For
See,
me,
that's
it
the
doesn't.
difference. That's the difference between you and Dale Scott. Dale Scott was hired by MLB to be on their Apple broadcast because he's just another pretty face. So,
Well, yeah,
Makes sense.
they
Yeah,
had
just let you know.
strict criteria, and
Right.
they said you sound fine, but you look marvelous, and so that was
Who are you, Billy Crystal now?
yeah, exactly.
Look marvelous. Well, Emma, the thing is with me, and I know my wife, she's an attorney. It doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, black, or white. If you can do the job, if you're male or female, more power to you. It's all about, can this person do the job? I don't care about gender. I know you're a good broadcaster because I've heard some of your tapes.
Have you been paying attention to what's happening out there?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
I agree 100%
No.
with what you just said, but you know what? There's still a lot of people that don't think that way.
No shit. I
Yeah,
know.
that's what I mean. And I have all the utmost respect for Emma. I break barriers because my daughter's the same way. And if my daughter can get through the door, that's the way it should be. It has nothing to do with your gender, like you just said, Bob. It has
Exactly.
nothing to do with the way, your gender, your racial makeup. It just infuriates me. And Emma, I hope that literally, I truly, truly mean this. Don't stop trying, because I can tell in your voice and your passion and stuff that it's worth every ounce of it.
Yep.
Right now. It
Yep.
really is. And I can just tell. And I'm a pretty good judge of character, right, Dale?
Yeah, well, you like me, so that's a
Well,
mark against that. But you're absolutely right. In fact, Bob, I'm glad you said that, because we found a female that could replace you, and we're going.
I thought Bach and Bob wanted to replace me.
Well, he's semi-female.
Well, I will say this, Emma, you're a lot better looking than Dale. You're a lot cuter than Dale, so I'm just going to go with that, okay?
Well,
sorry, Dale.
I'll have to go with that too. Yeah. I was
See, Emma, we love to have fun on this show. You should have heard our podcast with Bob Davidson. Oh my God, it was hysterical. But that's what we're trying to bring out is people with stories, and you've got a great story. And how did you get hooked up with your partner?
With Riley, I posted the job for my assistant, and she applied and had a great interview and everything, and knew that she needed to get better, and that's what this position is all about, is growing not only in the broadcast booth, but seeing the inner workings of the front office, the stats portal. We have to maintain the website, learning all of those little things, and then learning how to handle the clubhouse. I don't think a lot of people realize that it's typically the broadcasters who are making all these roster moves, making sure that We know if a player is getting released, if a player is moving to AAA, if a player is going down, knowing what's happening and then sitting on it, not telling anyone until the Red Sox give us the green light to actually send it to Major League Baseball to make those moves. And kind of having that confidentiality part of it too, and knowing how to, really conduct yourself in the clubhouse. We're not there to hang out with a bunch of players. We're there to do our jobs. If somebody needs to be interviewed, run in, grab them real quick, take them to the reporter that needs to talk to them. Those little things, making sure that everybody has the lineups every day. That's another thing we're responsible for, and making sure that we do the game notes every single day. All those little things, that's what an assistant learns, as well as getting 3 innings of play-by-play every night. And then getting critiques for myself of how to get better. And so Riley knew all of that. She was all game for it, and she crushed it. I mean, it was really funny after opening day in 2023. For opening day, my day starts about 3 a.m. It's the longest day of the year. It's me, our general manager, our vice president of communications, and then our ticket office manager, who happens to be my husband, so we can carpool in at 4 a.m. together. But we all come to the ballpark because we have the TV news stations here doing their morning shows. And so they all start at 4 a.m. So, it's the longest day of the year. It's always the most chaotic. And you get to the end of the night, the game is over, we can go home. And half the time, I don't even remember the score of the game. I'm so tired. I just want to go home. So after our first game together last year, Riley came into my office and she goes, I really want to get better. What critique do you have for me after tonight's game? I looked her in the eye and I said, Riley, I don't even know who won. I just want to go home. I want to go to bed, and I will talk to you tomorrow. But I knew, it was, her drive was great. I was like, immediately knew I hired the right person for the job after that. And luckily she was able to come back for the second season, and while I was on maternity leave, and she did a fantastic job. And I fully expect her to be a number 1 broadcaster somewhere next season. I'm really excited to see where her career takes her.
I will be right back. You guys go ahead. I got
many times I don't remember the score. I mean, after a game, you work a game and you're in the hotel later and somebody says something. Yeah, I think they won. I don't know, 5-3. I don't know. I just, because that's not really what you're concerned about. At least, from our perspective, as you're so focused on what you're doing, and it's like you're so focused in on such so much going on besides the actual broadcast that's going on that you're calling a game, and when it's over, it's like I think they won. I don't know. I think it was. I know they won. I don't know what the score was, but that again, a broadcast will be a little bit different. Let me ask you this: some broadcasters are. Well, let's say for a network game or something, they're not a Reds broadcaster or a Giants broadcaster or whatever. They're a broadcaster for a network, and they're delivering the game, and they're neutral. Conversely, you are with the Sea Dogs every day, and so obviously you're their home team, or that team's broadcaster. Do you find, does that limit you? Let's say the Sea Dogs are going through a tough time, and they're having a couple errors during a game. They're throwing the ball around. It's just not normal what they usually do. Can you critique that and criticize that to a point to where, again, kind of like talking about umpires, you're letting your listeners know that this is a sloppy game and these guys are not, this isn't normal or whatever, but not getting, you don't want to alienate any relationships you have with the team and with the players and stuff. Is that a fine line to cry, or to decipher?
Yeah, I think that it's similar to how I kind of sometimes talk about the umpires. The errors, if we have 3 or 4 or 5 in a game, those really speak for themselves. And I can try and analyze as much as I can. If it's a bad throw to first, I can say the shortstop footwork was just non-existent and couldn't get his feet right before even throwing the ball. But it's similar to umpires. I can't do that job. I can't go down there and field any ground balls. I can't call a strike zone. I don't want to call a strike zone. So I kind of give them grace. And especially at this level, it's all about development. We can try and say we want to win games, we want to win this championship every single year, but if we have to keep a reliever out there sometimes so he gets the experience of having guys on base and trying to get out of a jam. Or we don't have a bullpen anymore. So we're going to stick with that guy. He's going to throw 25 pitches this inning, give up 4 runs. The game is essentially over, but that's all we had, and so it's not always a do or die situation at this level. It's okay, can this guy get 3 solid at bats in this game? So it's kind of it is that kind of fine balance and knowing that yeah, we might have 3 errors in a game, but at least our players are going to never make that mistake again, hopefully, and they can learn from whatever error they committed.
Do you go down and visit with the umpires by any chance, like maybe once a series or something like that?
I haven't lately, just because I just haven't had time. But yeah, I'll see the same crews a lot, so I kind of know what to expect. And my manager will always tell me what to expect because
Of
he'll
course.
ask about the umpires and
Oh, they're the
he'll
experts.
be yeah, they are obviously. So that he kind of will give me a heads up on certain things, but no, in Lexington, I was talking to the umpires at least once a series, if not more,
Right.
just because we have to get the rotations and that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, in Portland, I don't do it as much as I'd like to. Our official scorer actually does every single day. He goes down and talks to the umpires and both clubhouses about the box score and any changes and stuff like that.
Well,
So
there's
so
a reason
he, he
there's a reason I asked that, because we go back again, once again, talking about Ernie Harwell and Vin Scully and
Mhm.
Jack Buck. Uh, Ernie Harwell showed up in our locker room at least once a series, and he would just come in, and it was nothing more than Ernie sitting down for 5 minutes and just saying, "What's going on in your guys' life? How is your family? How long have you been without seeing your family? Stuff like that."
Wow, yeah.
And then Ernie would go back, go out the door, and you'd see him the next time. He was just like uh, he was a breath of fresh air for the umpires, that you knew that that person behind you sitting up in that booth was had the understanding of what you did. I mean, and as umpires, there were a few other guys, and then there's other ones that just really didn't, really, I hate to say it, but they didn't care about the umpires and stuff. So it's more of a suggestion than anything else to get to know that the third party, that's on the field or not, or and just to see what goes on in their life. And you said you do that, and I think that's awesome. I really do, because I don't think it's done enough. And I'll give you a case in point. Something will happen during a game, and they will the announcer of the game, whether it be TV, radio, or whatever, will give their opinion of what happened, but then they don't go to the source to find out what happened. And I think that that's a benefit if there is a crossroads where, my play, that I'm infamous for, you know what? They came to me and asked me right away, obviously,
Mhm.
but at least I got to talk about it. And it wasn't like they just went off and said whatever they wanted to say. So I guess that's where I'm leading to is, and we appreciate that, actually. So
The other thing about that, and there were some print guys, John Lowe and Jerry
yes,
Fraley,
yes,
come to mind immediately. They said they would always come by and visit at least once a series, and John would come by every night. I
yeah,
think, but a lot of times they'd say the reason they do that is because they can pick up some little tidbits that is something that someone else, another broadcaster or somebody would maybe doesn't know about, and it may not be something that they can bring up in that game because the game doesn't go that way. But if something happens or a situation presents itself where little tidbits they find out from the umpire room, they could throw that in there, and it just adds. It's something that it's like extra credit. It's like
But John Lowe actually thought that the umpires were newsworthy. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
he was
He would, and sometimes he would say, can I use that, or can I,
yeah.
and you'll say, well, you can do it in background. Don't mention me, or whatever, or you can, or yeah, certainly you can use that or whatever. And again, that's what Ernie said, that the same thing. He goes, I love to come down and see at least once a series because I just want to say hello, how you guys doing? But I also every once in a while I'll pick something up that'll be very beneficial and it'll be unique to my broadcast, maybe to somebody else. And so that's the reason that Jimmy and I've been talking about this, because we've had broadcasters, and let me preface this by saying most of them don't do it, but
Exactly.
but
Right.
there were a few that did, and they seem to they use it as a positive thing, not something to throw in your face like Sean McDonough would do. Anyway,
Don't hold back, Dale.
man.
Hey Emma, you've got a great gig because you've got a mini Fenway Park you broadcast from. Headlock Field, you got the mini monster in left, and you've got pretty much
Oh,
the same
really?
dimensions.
Really?
So
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
we've got the main monster in left field. It's great. And then actually even another like kind of tribute to Fenway in the scoreboard in the main monster, we do have the oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking. Morse code of the owners' names, much like Fenway has Morse code also. So yeah, there's some little tidbits here to remind us of Fenway. It's really cool.
Isn't
That
We
is
the
hope
cool.
Morse
to we
code
hope
on
to we hope
isn't
to
the,
see you broadcasting with the Red Sox someday because I'll be your number one fan because that's the only team that matters to me. Even though this year, in the last couple of years, we're not talking about that, but
isn't
Yeah.
the Morse code on the Green Monster the Yankee family?
yes,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, Tom and
So
Gene Yockey.
Mhm.
I actually had the opportunity to walk through that door one time. I did a little thing on ESPN once again, way back when I was first or second year, and they were doing a thing on a guy that made it to the major leagues, and I just came obviously out of AAA and stuff like that, and they did this thing, and they wanted me to walk out of the door of the scoreboard in Fenway Park, and I said,
Wow.
why would I do that? I always come out of this door, out of the dugout. Well, they said, well, that's, we don't care about you. We want to use the background, the green monster and stuff. I go, oh, okay. Thank you.
You got to think
I'm
about. You got
just
to
a
think
show
like a
pony.
director, Jimmy. Think like a
Yeah.
director.
Yeah, just a
Hey,
show pony.
Jimmy, we care about you. Dale and I care about you. I know Emma cares about you, so it's all good. We
Yeah.
got you,
That's
brother.
why I keep coming back.
Yeah. Emma, I know you've got to go. We've been here for almost an hour now, and we want to have you back again, maybe before the season starts. And if you can bring Riley on too, we'd like to talk to her with you guys and do a dual podcast. We would, I think Jimmy and Dale would like that too.
Absolutely. We'll do it on that opening day that that you're not
That you're busy. Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
started. We'll do it
Yeah.
like 8 o'clock in the morning your time. So
Emma's eyes are
I
going to be
think
like this, and
2:30.
she's going to have
Yeah.
like 8
Exactly.
Yeah,
cups of coffee.
like an hour and a half before first pitch. We would like to have you
Right.
on for.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be the day where we'd have roster changes and lineup changes too.
There you
It'd
go.
be great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, nothing else going on, right?
Well,
Well,
Oh, that'd
Emma,
be
thank
great. We'd
you,
be happy to.
thank you
Emma,
so much for being with us, and again, look forward to having you again. And I'm wishing you nothing but just great luck
Absolutely.
as you
Absolutely.
climb this ladder.
Yep.
I hope one of these days you will be broadcasting full time from Fenway. I've had some great games there. I also wanted to dig a hole and die there. Uh, so I've had just quick story. The Red Sox, it always seems you have teams that just my first couple of years, probably my first 3 years. Boston was one of those teams that it didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter what happened. It was one of those teams that they did not believe me. They didn't like me. And it was really tough. And I think that's when Sean got his thoughts about me. But and I love Boston, and it's a great park to
Mhm.
work in just because, and I've got a lot of friends there now. But my first few years, when I saw Boston, the schedule, oh God, because it just was like I was going to a nightmare. Let me go to my nightmare series. But anyway, I really do hope things work out as you continue climbing that ladder. I think it's fantastic.
Well, it's the only
Thanks so
town that
much.
I've ever been in that I enjoy being called a rat bastard. So
Yeah. Well, that was from one of our
could have
guys,
been
though.
exactly. I hate those partners.
Emma, thank you so much for coming on and chewing the fat with us three guys. We really appreciate it. We really respect what you're doing. You are a pioneer. And I echo what Jimmy and Dale have said. I wish you nothing but the best. I think you're great at what you do. You've got the right attitude. You've got the right mindset. You're going to go
Mhm.
places. I really and truly mean
Absolutely.
that. And one day I want to see you in Fenway Park so I can say, I know her.
No, you
Yeah.
want her in Fenway Park so you can get tickets. I know how you are.
Right.
Yes.
You never left me tickets, Dale. Every time I was in Fenway, you never left me
You
tickets.
never asked.
Oh, that's right. That's true. I didn't know you back then. Emma, thank you so much. We will talk to you again soon, hopefully, and have a great off season and get some sleep before opening day.
Yeah. Will do. Thanks so much,
Thanks,
guys.
Evan.
Okay, that's Emma Teeds. He's Dale Scott. He's Jimmy Joyce. I'm Bob Busser. Remember, don't be a follower. Don't be a sheep. Always take the road to the left. You never know what you'll find. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.